Heidi, how you doing?
Hey, Nicola, I'm doing really good. I'm excited to get the week going. I had a nice, refreshing weekend, so feeling good and feeling ready to take it on.
Yeah, very good. Me too. I did my first hot pod yoga yesterday, so that was
Nice.
very interesting. Yeah, I'm not really a yogi, but I've been trying to just have a little go to, try it out and see whether it's for me. But that was really interesting being in the hot pod yesterday.
Oh yeah, anytime you want to talk about that, we can do that. Hot yoga is one of my favorite things. It's been a game changer.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
amazing. Right. We'll definitely have to come back to that then at some point.
for sure. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I think one of the things that's come up over the past week, obviously last week was International Women's Day, so it was obviously brilliant for chatting about health and women and why we've got to take more control over the way we live and how we feel. But something that came up, well, comes up all the time actually, and I think you'll probably have seen the same, is that people get frustrated with trying to make changes because they want the results straight away.
Right.
Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yes, all the time. And it's really funny because I think a lot of times we look specifically to like weight loss or building muscle. Right? You want to see those immediate results. But I think honestly, I feel like I see it show up with clients and even in myself across the board. So like meditation was one of those biggest things for me. I would start meditating and then I'd be like, this isn't working. This isn't doing anything. This is so frustrating. But to be able to focus on the long term, I know this is going to make an impact down the road is such a game changer because then it makes you continue to show up when you don't want to and when you don't feel like you're getting those results. But I think like one of the questions is like, how do you do that? How do you keep that long-term goal and keep your focus on the long-term effects of whatever it is that you're doing? How do you do that? Like, do you have any advice for how to keep
Yeah.
that long-term goal in mind?
Yeah, and the big thing that I use is your why. So that's the first part of my framework, the well framework. So I have why, how, equip, and let's. But the why is really important because I think, you'll know this as well. And I think if anyone just pauses and thinks about it, they know too, is, whenever you want to do something, it's easy to just go, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Like I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, or I'm going to save for a holiday, whatever the thing might be. But just because you've said it doesn't mean that it happens. Whereas when you really tap into why it matters to you, and why it's going to change your life. So these are big why questions, not just like, well, why do you want to go to the gym? It's like, why does it matter to you? Why do you want to be a person who goes to the gym or meditates and, saves money for a holiday? So really getting clear on it. And then with that, using a vision to picture that future version of yourself, because it will be hard. Any change is hard. It doesn't matter whether it's health related or not. Change is always tough, isn't it? Because of the habits that are controlling our subconscious and making us do things the way we've always done them. So you need to have that anchor to the why so that you can keep supporting yourself to go forward with whatever it is, like in your example, the meditation. Because, you do need to have something that brings you back to it when it feels too hard and tough and like you want to give in. So that's one of the tools that I use, and that's the starting one really, is to, get that clear, because that's what gives you the initial boost of motivation and then picks you up along the way. Is there anything
Right.
that you've used or do differently?
Actually, I mean, I'm a huge fan of visualization, like huge fan of that. And the why, but I also, for me and for some of my clients, I've seen it's really important to have all that like big, background. Why am I doing this? All that in your mind. But then I also find it really helpful to come up with a tangible thing to support that, because a lot of times, depending on our mood or just the circumstances of our day, we can lose track of that big why, or it feels less important sometimes. When
Yeah.
you want that instant gratification, you're like, well, that doesn't matter. Right, exactly. You know, like, or it just feels less important somehow. So something that I actually have some of my clients do is to write out those visualizations, or to write out how they feel either when they accomplish those goals. So, you know, let's say going to the gym, write it down. How proud were you of yourself today that you made it to the gym? How much better did you feel about moving your body? Write it down, because then in those moments that you're like wanting to get rid of your why or struggling to visualize it, you have it there as evidence to look to, right? So that's something that I have found to be really handy. And the opposite I also find true when you don't do it. So one of my clients has been trying to drink less, right? Drink less alcohol. And I'm like, that next morning when you've had a couple glasses of wine and you feel like crap, write it down.
Write it down, yeah.
Then you can go back and look and remember how crappy you felt, right?
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And I always talk about celebrating you and doing, you know, the reflection piece to recognize what you're doing, reward yourself. And that's key, because that's how we get that like intrinsic motivation, that internal drive to keep doing something, by knowing what we like about the fact we've done it. Whereas if you just plod on through your life and, you know, you're not taking any time to reflect on that, then like you say, when things are hard, you kind of go, well, why would I want to do that anyway? Whereas when you've started to really understand how it makes you feel, kind of linked to this, something that I had heard in a group coaching session I was in actually, which I just think is such a brilliant idea, is to do something called like a brag list. So writing an email to yourself on a Friday was the example given, and putting on there things that you've done really well that week, you know, so that when you are struggling and you're thinking, oh, I can't do this anymore, I'm not good enough, because those kind of thoughts often get in the way, don't they, of people keep, you know, progressing forward, because they think, well, I've gone to the gym, I haven't lost any weight, I haven't got nice toned arms, my bum's not lifted up yet, you know, and pert and hard. What's the point in this? Whereas if you've got something, it's the same thing really you've said, isn't it? You know, where you can go back to it and go, well, actually, you know, that week when I went 3 times, I felt really good. I made good food choices. I was proud of myself for doing it when I had a lot on in life and I still made the time to go, and just that kind of things, that you've got that record there, you know, maybe set yourself a little email folder all about you, and that you can just open it when you're feeling in a bit of like a funk and think, oh, what's the point in this?
I love that so much. And you also just made me think about, like, if you could do that little brag list and then you could schedule it to send at, like, you know, some random time during the week next week. So that all of a sudden Wednesday at 2:00 in the afternoon, you're like, oh yeah, I am awesome. This is great.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's really good. I'm definitely going to add that in. And I think just one thing like to add on to this is, we want, when we've decided we want to do something positive like these types of changes for our health, we want the results straight away, don't we? And there's nothing wrong with that. But
right,
you know, because of how we are as humans, really, in that we want the gratification straight away, and the kinds of changes we're making are going to take a long time. Some of the changes, in fact, when it comes to your health, are things that are going to impact you 10, 20 years from now. They're not going to give you the instant reward. So it is about finding these small ways to reward yourself. And it doesn't have to be with something tangible. That virtual pat on the back or high five in the mirror are great ways to just keep that going, isn't it? Because, you know, I think, I know you've read James Clear's Atomic Habits book as well, where he talks about the, you know, the impact of bad habits is many years in the future, but the reward is instant. You know, like you drink a full bottle of wine, you eat a big bar of chocolate, you feel great, but you don't feel the consequences of that in a negative way for many years to come. And it's the reverse with the good habits, in that it's going to take time, but then it'll be so worth it. So you've got to find those ways to reward yourself and stay connected to it right now,
so
haven't you?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that comes to mind that that I find to be really important, especially when it comes to being in the gym and weight loss and things like that, is that when you start to make these changes, so like, for example, with lifting weights, you always want to start with like high repetitions and low weights, because you're not going to jump right in and start doing something that's going to injure you, right? And so because you're making small changes, you're not going to see these immediate results right away, but you're laying a foundation for the changes that you eventually will see to be long lasting, because you're not going to get injured, you know, and you're going to have that core foundation to build upon. So I think coming back to that, like, oh yeah, I'm making these solid foundational changes right now so that I can see long-term differences.
Yeah,
at least
definitely
in my head.
Yeah. And I think with that, yeah, I was going to say, with that example, I think as well, it's easy to miss some of the things that do come from it quickly. You know, like as in you might sleep better, you might feel in a happier mood, be less ratty, you know, little things like that. So, you know, back to that journaling reflection thing, to pick up on those, because some of what you are not expecting is a ripple effect of those good habits you're trying to build.
That's so true. Yeah, you got to pay attention to all those things. Like, it's, you know, we get hung up on weight loss as women sometimes. And I think that, yeah, you make a really good point to look at all those other ways that you're getting healthy, right? So I love that point.
Yeah.
This is awesome, Nicola. I love it.
Yeah, hopefully it's given people a bit of food for thought, and yeah, just to have a think about it and see, you know, are you putting off change because it feels like you're not getting the results you want fast enough? Whereas if you persevere, could it really have some lasting change that does make you feel healthier and happier?
Perfect question to end on. I love that. I'm going to reflect on that.
Fab. Oh, well, have a great week, Heidi. Thanks. Bye. Bye.